This happened to me last November, Thanksgiving night, around 10:45 p.m. I'd spent the holiday at my sister's place in Oak Creek, but I took an Uber back to my apartment in Milwaukee because I had work early the next morning. Driver's name was Tony. Black Honda Civic. I remember the smell when I got in, like pine air freshener and cigarettes trying to cover something else. Old food maybe. He looked like a normal guy. Late 30s, beard, baseball cap. Friendly. Too friendly. "You from around here?" he asked as I buckled in. "Yeah," I said, already tired and scrolling through my texts. "Used to be a nice area." "Not anymore." I nodded, not really engaging, but he kept talking. Not small talk, personal stuff. "You used to live over on 91st Street, right? That duplex with the red door." I looked up. "How do you know that?" He smiled. "Lucky guess. I hadn't lived there in over 5 years. I didn't even mention it in the app." A few minutes passed. I was tense now, watching the streets. We were still on the right path, I think. Then he said, "Your mom's name is Karen, right? Still wears that silver necklace with the blue stone." I asked him to pull over. He didn't, just laughed quietly and said, "Relax. I just know things." I opened the app to end the ride, but the contact emergency services button was grayed out. Then I noticed the route was gone, just like a frozen screen. I said, "Let me out now." He finally stopped at a gas station. I bolted out and ran inside. When I looked back, he was gone. I filed a report with Uber. They said the ride wasn't logged, like it never happened. But 3 days later, a manila envelope showed up on my doorstep. No return address. Inside, a photo of me getting into his car. And one of my mom, through her kitchen window. This happened last month, May 22nd. It was a Thursday. I remember because it was the first warm night after weeks of cold rain. I was leaving a late shift at the cafe, around 11:40 p.m., and called an Uber like usual. I was tired, covered in espresso dust, and just wanted to get home, shower, and crash. The driver's name was Luis. 4.97 rating. Black Mazda 3. Everything looked normal. I got in, said, "Hi," and he gave a little nod without speaking. He looked maybe mid-50s, bald, wire-framed glasses. Clean car, smelled faintly like peppermint gum and something faintly plasticky, like heated vinyl. I noticed right away that he kept adjusting his rearview mirror, like every 20 seconds. Not checking traffic, checking me. At first, I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. But after a few minutes, I could feel it, his eyes locking on mine in the mirror, just long enough to feel wrong. We weren't talking. No music. Just the sound of the engine and the occasional turn signal. At one point, he whispered something I couldn't catch. I said, "Sorry," and he didn't answer. Then, just as we passed 42nd and Locust, he said, clear as day, "You remind me of my daughter." I nodded slowly. "Cool. I used to take her to school every morning," he said. Before the accident, I didn't know how to respond. He started driving slower, like way under the speed limit, and he kept looking at me in the mirror, almost expectantly. Then he said, "You don't have to go home right away." That's when I faked a phone call. I told the caller I'd meet them out front in 2 minutes. I made my voice loud enough for him to hear. Luis didn't say another word, just sped up a little and dropped me off a block early. I got out, pretending to wave at someone. The next day, I checked my trip history. There was no record of the ride. It happened on March 4th, around 11:20 p.m. I'd just gotten out of a friend's apartment in downtown St. Paul and called an Uber to take me back to my place, about 15 minutes away. The driver's name was Mark. Toyota Camry. 4.9 stars. Nothing sketchy. He pulled up within 2 minutes. I got in, said hey, and he nodded without speaking. That didn't bother me. Some drivers aren't chatty. The car smelled like cheap cologne and something faintly sour, like old milk. I put my headphones in. After maybe 5 minutes, I noticed we weren't taking the normal route. I figured he was avoiding construction or traffic, but when I checked the Uber app, the blue line showing our route was gone. Just a blank map. I asked, "Hey, is this a detour or something?" He didn't answer, just kept driving. I pulled my headphones out. "Sir." "Nothing. No eye contact." He was gripping the wheel hard, knuckles white. I opened the app again to cancel, but it froze. Wouldn't let me exit the ride. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. We weren't heading toward my neighborhood. We were going west, toward a more rural area. "Fast. Please stop the car," I said louder this time. Still nothing. I started recording on my phone. Said his name, the make of the car, the time. He didn't flinch. I considered jumping out, but we were going 65 on a back road. Trees on both sides. No houses. Then, finally, he spoke. Low and flat. I'm just doing what they told me to. That was it. No explanation. No emotion. I called 911. Quietly. Whispered what was happening. The dispatcher stayed on the line and told me to keep calm. A few minutes later, Mark suddenly pulled over on a dirt road and got out without a word. He walked into the woods. I locked the doors and climbed into the driver's seat. He'd left the keys in the ignition. I drove until I got service again and met up with police. They never found him. Not the man, not the car's real plates, nothing. Turns out the Uber account was hacked. The real Mark lived in Ohio. And the scariest part? I still don't know who he meant by they.